Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Growing up, my parents always taught me to treat others with respect and to never act entitled. They instilled in me a sense of humility and gratitude, which I have carried with me throughout my life. So when I encountered an entitled family at a restaurant one Friday night, I knew that I had to speak up and confront them. My friends and I have been looking forward to trying out this new restaurant for weeks. We had heard great things about the food and the ambience, and we were excited to have a fun and relaxing evening. As we walked in, I couldn't help but notice a family of four causing a commotion at the hostess stand. They were demanding to be seated right away, despite the restaurant being full and a wait list for tables. I could tell that they were entitled from the way they were talking to the hostess. They believed that they should be given priority seating because they were a family and they were not shy about making their demands known. The hostess politely informed them that there would be a wait, but they continued to cause a scene. My friends and I were seated at a table near the back of the restaurant, and we began to peruse the menu. We were excited to try out some of the signature dishes that we had heard so much about. But our excitement was short-lived, as the entitled family was seated at a small table in a corner of the restaurant. As we were enjoying our appetizers, we could hear the entitled family complaining about the size of their table. They were loudly demanding that they be given a bigger table, even though the restaurant was packed and there were no available tables. The mother of the family began to move tables around to try and make more room for themselves, disrupting the other diners around them. I could feel my blood pressure rising as they continued to act entitled and rude. I knew that I had to say something, but I didn't want to cause a scene. However, as their behavior continued to escalate, I knew that I had to confront them. "Excuse me, can you please stop disrupting the other diners and causing a scene?" I said firmly. The mother of the family turned to me with a scowl on her face. "Mind your own business. We're just trying to enjoy our dinner." I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. "I understand that you want to enjoy your dinner, but you're making it uncomfortable for everyone else around you. Can you please stop moving the tables around and be considerate of the other diners?" The entitled mother huffed and crossed her arms. "We're paying customers. We have a right to be here and to have a comfortable dining experience." I could feel my frustration growing. Yes, you're paying customers, but so are the other people in this restaurant. They have just as much of a right to enjoy their dinner as you do. As I spoke, the father of the family got up from his seat and started to get aggressive. He started shouting at me and trying to intimidate me. But I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let them bully me into submission. "You have no right to talk to us like that," he growled. "What do you think you are?" "I'm just a concerned diner who wants to enjoy my meal without having to listen to your entitled behavior," I replied. He then tried to physically attack me, but I was able to dodge his punch and instead, he fell backwards on a table behind him, causing a scene and attracting the attention of the entire restaurant. As he lay on his back, looking stunned and embarrassed, the other diners began to clap and cheer. They had grown tired of the entitled family's behavior and were glad that someone had finally spoken up. The manager of the restaurant quickly intervened and asked the family to leave. The entitled family continued to protest and argue, but the manager stood firm and escorted them out of the restaurant. The atmosphere in the restaurant had completely changed, and the other diners were now enjoying their meals in peace. As we finished our dinner, I couldn't help but reflect on the incident that had just occurred. I had always been taught to stand up for what I believe in and to never let others bully me. The situation had tested my resolve, but I had stayed true to my values. After dinner, my friends and I thanked the manager for his quick action and for ensuring that the rest of the diners were able to enjoy their meals in peace. As we left the restaurant, I couldn't help but feel proud of myself for standing up to the entitled family and for setting an example for others to follow. Let me tell you the story of how I almost got into a physical altercation with my neighbor. It all started when I moved into my new apartment complex. The place was beautiful, and the location was perfect. I was thrilled to finally have a place of my own. I was excited to meet new people and start a new chapter in my life. However, things started to go downhill when I met my neighbor, Jake. One day, I was hanging out on my balcony, enjoying the beautiful weather when I noticed that Jake's balcony was filled with junk. There were old bikes, broken furniture, and a bunch of other random things. It was an eyesore, and it made our building look bad. I decided to go over and ask him if he could clean it up. "Hey Jake," I said, trying to sound friendly. "I was just wondering if you could clean up your balcony a bit. It's starting to look pretty cluttered, and it's not very pleasant to look at." Jake looked at me like I was crazy. "Excuse me?" he said with a bit of sarcasm in his voice. "Are you seriously asking me to clean up my own balcony? Who do you think you are?" "I'm just asking. It's not a big deal, I just thought it would look nicer." "Well, I don't really care what you think. It's my balcony, and I'll do whatever I want with it. If you don't like it, tough luck." I was taken aback by his hostility. I couldn't believe that he was reacting so strongly to such a simple request. I decided to drop it and went back inside, feeling frustrated and angry. From that moment on, things between Jake and me were tense. Every time we saw each other, we would exchange cold glares, and we would never speak unless we had to. I tried my best to avoid him, but it was impossible since we lived in the same building. One day, I was walking down the hallway when Jake appeared out of nowhere. He looked angry, and I could tell that he had been drinking. "What's your problem, huh?" he slurred, getting closer to me. "Why do you keep bothering me about my balcony? You think you're better than me or something?" "I don't think I'm better than you, Jake," I said, backing away from him. "I just think that we should all take care of our building and keep it looking nice." "Well, I don't give a damn about the building. And I don't give a damn about you either. You're just a little snitch who can't mind their own business." I was starting to feel scared. I had never seen Jake like this before, and I didn't know how to handle the situation. I tried to back away slowly, but he lunged at me, grabbing my shirt. "You want to fight, huh?" he said, his face is turning red at this point. "You think you're tough?" I tried to push him away, but he was too strong. He was much taller and heavier than me, and I knew that I didn't stand a chance in a physical fight. Suddenly, I remembered the self-defense classes I had taken a few years back. I knew I had to act fast before things escalated any further. I used the techniques I had learned in class and managed to break free from his grip. Jake stumbled backwards. Clearly surprised that I was able to defend myself, I took that opportunity to make a run for it and quickly went back into my apartment, locking the door behind me. I was shaking with fear and adrenaline. I couldn't believe that things had gotten so out of control over a simple request to clean up his balcony. I knew that I had to do something to resolve this situation before it got any worse. The next day I went to the building manager and explained the situation to her. I told her about Jake's behavior and how he had threatened me. She assured me that she would take care of it and that she would talk to him. A few days later, I noticed that Jake's balcony was finally clean. I felt relieved that the situation had been resolved, but I still didn't feel safe around him. I continued to keep my distance and avoided any interaction with him. One day, I was coming back from the grocery store when I noticed that Jake was outside smoking a cigarette. I tried to walk past him without saying anything, but he called out to me. "Hey, I just wanted to apologize for the way I acted. I was going through some stuff and I took it out on you. I shouldn't have threatened you like that." I was surprised by his apology but also a bit skeptical. "It's okay," I said, keeping my guard up. "Just please, let's try to be civil with each other from now on, okay?" He nodded and took another drag from his cigarette. "Yeah, I agree. I don't want any bad blood between us, eh? We're neighbors after all." We chatted for a bit longer and I could tell that he was trying to make amends. I was still wary of him, but I appreciated his apology and willingness to change his behavior. From that day on, Jake and I managed to coexist peacefully. We didn't become friends or anything like that, but we were civil enough with each other and even said hello when we saw each other in the hallway. It wasn't the ideal situation, but it was better than living in constant fear and tension. I was sitting in my wheelchair in the park, enjoying the warm sun on my face and the sound of birds chirping in the trees. I like coming here. It was one of the few places where I felt free and not confined by my disability. But then she showed up, Karen. Karen was a middle-aged woman with short hair and an air of entitlement that seemed to follow her everywhere she went. She marched towards me, her heels clacking on the pavement, and I could tell right away that she was trouble.
"Excuse me, you're blocking the pathway. Can you move over?"
I tried to explain to her that there was plenty of space for her to go around me, but she didn't seem to want to listen. Instead, she huffed and puffed and muttered under her breath as she tried to maneuver her stroller around me. As she was passing, I heard her mutter,
"Why do they let these people out in public?"
I felt my face flush with anger and humiliation. It wasn't the first time someone had made the derogatory comment about my disability, but it still hurt. I tried to shake it off and focus on my beautiful day, but Karen wasn't done with me yet. She circled back around and stood in front of me, blocking my view of the pond.
"You know, you really should move to the side. You're ruining the view for everyone else."
I was stunned. I had as much right to enjoy the park as anyone else, and here was this woman trying to push me around just because of my disability. I wanted to tell her off, to stand up for myself, but my voice caught in my throat. And that's when my mom showed up. My mom is a force to be reckoned with. She's always been my advocate, fighting for me when I can't fight for myself. She marched over to Karen, her eyes blazing with fury. "What's your problem, huh?" she demanded. Karen sneered at her.
"Your son is blocking the path and ruining the view."
My mom looked at her incredulously. "He's in a wheelchair. What's he supposed to do? Levitate out of the way?" Karen rolled her eyes.
"You could at least move to the side."
My mom had had enough. She grabbed Karen's arm and pulled her out of the way, pushing her stroller past us. But Karen wasn't going to let it go. She turned back around and started shouting at us.
"Get your hands off me! Who do you think you are? I'm going to report you to the park rangers."
I could feel my anxiety building and my heart racing. I didn't like confrontation, and Karen was making things worse, but then something amazing happened. My mom didn't back down. She stood her ground, facing off against Karen like a warrior. "You're the one who's causing a disturbance here," she said. "Maybe you should take your entitled attitude somewhere else." Karen was taken aback by my mom's words, but only for a moment. Then she lunged at my mom, trying to hit her. I watched in horror as they grappled with each other, my mom's hands holding Karen back. But then something even more amazing happened. My mom found her strength and pushed Karen away, sending her sprawling on the ground. Karen scrambled to her feet.
"You can't do that! I'm going to sue you!"
My mom just laughed, unfazed by Karen's threats. "You're lucky I don't press charges for assaulting me. And if you try to sue me, I'll have plenty of witnesses to testify against you." Karen glared at my mom, then looked over at me.
"You should be ashamed of yourself. You and your mom are just using your disability to get special treatment."
I bristled at her words, but my mom stepped in before I could say anything. "My son doesn't need special treatment. He needs respect and equal access, just like everyone else." Karen seemed to realize she wasn't going to get anywhere with us. She gathered up her stroller and walked away, muttering under her breath. My mom and I watched her go, then turned to each other with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "Are you okay?" my mom asked me, taking my hand. I nodded, still trying to process what had just happened. "I'm okay. Thanks for standing up for me." My mom smiled at me. "Of course, honey. That's what moms are for." We sat in silence for a few more minutes, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the beauty of the park. I felt grateful for my mom and for the strength she had shown in standing up to Karen. It wasn't easy to deal with people like her, but my mom had shown me that it was possible to fight back and stand up for yourself, even when you're disabled. As we got ready to leave, my mom turned to me and said, "Let's go get some ice cream." I grinned at her, excited for the treat. "Yeah, let's go." We wheeled away from the park, my mom pushing me and chatting with me about our plans for the weekend, and I felt happy and content, grateful for the love and support of my mom, and for the reminder that I was just as valuable and deserving of respect as anyone else. This story isn't just one entitled parent, but a whole ton of entitled parents. So some background. Finding Dory was a new movie at the time, and I was around 15. My mom decided that I, my baby brother, and she would see Finding Dory, as it was a weekend, and my other brother was out with his friends or gaming with them, or he might just not want to come. Anyway, it was just the three of us. My baby brother was about a year or so by then, so he wasn't able to join in. Now the story. We have got our popcorn, drinks, and candy, and we were waiting for the movie to start. The other parents, many entitled parents, but a few are like my mom who wouldn't allow her kids to run wild, came in soon after we did. My mom liked to come into a movie theater early so we could get the seats near the top row. The movie was about to start when some employee, I assume a manager of some sort, walked into the movie theater. I couldn't make him out of the sea of people in the rows below, but I heard him say the worst thing any moviegoer could hear. As we have so many children, no joke, the children were double the number of adults and teenagers, we decided to keep the lights on, not to scare the children. With that, the employee left, sealing our fate. The children behaved for the first 10 or so minutes of Finding Dory. And those were a blissful 10 or so minutes because things went downhill fast. See, I think the children would have been better behaved if the lights were off, as lights off in a theater had this "be quiet and watch the movie" signal to it. With the lights on, it had the connotation of the movie is yet to start, so go wild it seemed. Soon the children were restless. They got up and started to play in their row quietly, which slowly grew to treat the whole theater as a playground. I am not sure why no one left to complain. For all I know, the parents trying to keep their kids from entering the mayhem were too frazzled to think about that, or someone was fearful of the employees shutting off the film midway through. With children hopping on seats and running through rows and down the aisles, I am shocked no employees came to check the commotion. Then the real stars of the story came to play. The entitled parents. It seemed one kid hit another kid in the mouth somehow. Then two pairs of entitled parents began to scream about how dare they raise an unruly child, threatening to tell an employee what happened, and suing the parents into the ground. I only watched in horror, glancing from the film to the entitled parents screaming, unsure which was more entertaining. Since I didn't have my phone on hand, I couldn't record what was before me. The parents was a kid who got kicked. He somehow wasn't bleeding from the force of the kick. Decided to let him eat some candy to calm down before he'd return to the fray. This one incident seemed to give a reason for entitled parents to go off on other entitled parents for their entitled kids, while defending their own kid. Throughout this, some kid decided to throw popcorn into the air, screaming, "Snow! Snow!" Other kids copied this too. Soon the rows below were suffering, having popcorn rain down. At the top row where I and my mom were was relatively untouched. Then someone from the row above us got tired and began to go off on some of the entitled parents, pointing out that this is a movie theater and they should have control over their entitled kids. This only caused the entitled parents to defend their precious angels, screaming that this was a movie theater and the parents going off on them have to be quiet during a film. Ironic, I know. This lasted throughout the mass portion of the film. The children only settled at the climax action part of the film. At the end of it, the parent who tried to argue to the entitled parents grumbled back to his seat 5 minutes after arguing with them. The film ended, around 80 minutes of the film having been used as an excuse for entitled parents to not parent their entitled offspring, and my mom and I grabbed our things and left the theater. The one or two parents who kept their children from turning the cinema into their own personal playground decided to complain to the management and the higher-up employee for what happened. as no employees entered throughout the film. I never went back to a cinema since that day, and I can't watch Finding Dory again without thinking of what had happened in that theater. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.